Hey, everyone.
Hi.
So Josh, I can get in to see my chiropractor at like 2:40. So I'll get the meeting going. And, I've got a good 25 minutes and then I'll scoot it over to you.
Perfect. Yeah, I just saw that in my inbox. Sorry about that. I missed it. I'm glad they could get you in.
Yeah.
What about any luck with Kaiser?
Yep. They didn't have my apartment.
Oh,
on the mailing.
on. So they're just sending it to the main office?
Uh-huh.
Oh, geez.
They're resending everything.
Good.
Hi, Jessica. Hi, Micah.
Am I getting an echo right now?
Yes.
Yeah. Heavy feedback.
What is going on? Why is this thing not working?
That sounds better though.
Well, I know it's not Ziply fiber.
No, I'm
I
having
have Ziply.
problems today like you wouldn't believe. Let's see here. Where did that go? Oh, that's fabulous. Okay. Are you still getting an echo?
Nope.
Okay.
That's great.
Well, this is awkward. I'm going to be looking on two different screens. That's all right. We're going to put this here. Oh, that's not going to work. Okay. I need my paper. Hold on. Technical difficulties here. All right. Okay. Happy Monday, everyone.
Happy Monday.
Let's see here. Do I have this? Oh, I need it. Okay, there we go. So we have Micah, we have Alba. Melanie's not going to be able to join us. Kevin had asked to become a member of the committee, non-voting. I don't see him.
He was a maybe.
A maybe, okay. And Johnny said he may or may not be able to attend. Okay. Well, then let's call the meeting to order and get rolling. We'll skip through. Oh, we do need to review and approve the minutes from the November 3rd meeting, which I did not attend. So Alba, Micah, have you had an opportunity to review those?
I didn't see any issues.
Excellent. Since we don't officially get to take, we aren't officially taking a motion in committee. Is that what I understood? Correct, Josh? It's not required for committee work.
I believe that's at the choice of the chair, but I think in the past we have made a motion and approved.
Okay. Well, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
We have, and I think that's one of the things that, well, let's do this first.
Micah, go ahead. Tell me. We're figuring things out as we roll here.
No, it's fine. I'm sorry, I haven't had much time to look over things, but I'm cruising through the edits that everybody's done, which is just a lot of work, and I appreciate it. But the quorum and as far as committees go, they're generally smaller than board meetings. And does that number vary from 7 to a lower number? I don't know.
Well,
And
it should be a majority of the committee members. So in this case, we have 5 committee members technically, right? Because Johnny has not withdrawn. That's a committee member. So we have 3 present. That's sufficient for us to conduct business.
Okay. I'll move on it then.
Okay, is there a second? Well, there's only 2 of you who could vote. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I'm elected as abstaining, so motion passes. Okay, first item, and I'm going to make a small revision to the agenda. I want to deal with the two new policies first, and then the bylaws, and then the first chapter. So we'll handle old business as A, C, B, D. So first item is the new policy on write-offs. So again, this is a policy so that One Call Concepts, our vendor, has some direction on what to do with small amounts, small dollar lingering outstanding balances. We, as the Policies and Procedures Committee, can always refine this if directed to do so by the board or under our own merit at a later date. But we do need to get something in the manual related to this so that we can give our vendor some information. And I see that there was a revision to referring to One Call as the vendor, simply just calling it vendor. I think that's a good revision. I would suggest that we keep that. Are there any discussions about that?
No, looked good to me.
Alba, any concerns?
No, I read through everything last week and I didn't see anything to note on any of it.
Okay. The only thing I would say, Josh, and this is just a Scrivener's note, so that anytime we refer to Oregon Utility Notification Center, we need to spell that out instead of saying OUNC, because in the beginning of the manual, you've noticed I changed all of the language to OUNC. So just making those changes. So removing One Call, changing OUNC to actually being spelled out. If there's no objections, I'll entertain a motion to move this policy in its final form for board consideration later this week.
No objections here.
Yeah. Yes. I
Okay,
second. It's moved.
all right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, one down, three to go. Okay, so second proposed policy, this is addressing late fees on or finance charges. Again, the same recommendations for removing the reference to One Call and the full extrapolated spell out of the Oregon Utility Notification Center. I didn't see any other needed changes. Micah, do you see any?
No.
Alba.
I didn't see anything to change.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to move consideration of this proposed policy to the board.
So moved.
Micah? Make the motions, you can second.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, there we go. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
All right.
Motion carries. Okay, on to the bylaws. Micah, have you had an opportunity to look through this language?
I did. I'm looking through the whole thing
Okay,
right now as a whole. And are we going to mix? And was I understanding correctly that we're going to be merging the two instead of having two separate documents?
no, we are bifurcating.
Separating?
Yes. We're taking, currently they are one big document and we are separating it into actually what's going to be 3 documents.
I thought they were. They weren't separate?
That was my reaction.
They were and they weren't. We had it as
Really?
a standalone, but it was also combined as the first chapter of our policy and procedures manual. And the problem was they were not consistent.
Okay, all right. Only reason I say that is because I remember them being two separate documents. So. and
That
I've
is
always
what
remembered them.
it should not be a part of the PMP. It really should be a standalone document.
Okay.
I think, Micah, because it was presented in the past, like we're going to review the bylaws, it wasn't we're checking out the policy and procedure manual specific to the bylaws within that.
Yeah, yeah.
We did
Okay.
kind of always talk like it was two different things.
Don't let me hold things up then.
Okay, I'm reviewing Melanie's. Oh, did she just add the amendments to the bylaws? Oh yeah. Oh, these are changes we had already made. Okay.
Now, on my screen, her comments are in red and mine are in blue.
Yeah, she changed will to shall and may. I don't have any problems with those.
And she did have one comment up at the top about whether or not we should state the purpose of the OUNC Articles of Incorporation.
No, because that's incorporated in the policies and procedures manual. I mean, we could recite the same 3 things that are at the beginning of the PMP here. It makes a difference to me.
Yeah, we'll have it one way or the other.
Right, correct. Yeah, it would be those, it would be the statement of purpose, the mission, and the creation.
Yep, perfect.
So we can add those 3 items. I think that addresses Melanie's concerns. Again, Scrivener's, well, you have made the proper designation for OUNC in the Article 1 of the bylaws. Just make sure that if you're going to add the mission, statement of purpose and creation, that you use that same, you follow that same alignment of referring to it as OUNC all the way through.
Okay. In policy and procedures, I spelled it out throughout because I noticed you'd made that change. So I may just keep it consistent across
Okay.
everything.
Yeah, that's great.
And then it was all capitalized. Is there a reason why it's all capitalized?
No, I did a find and replace and it because OUNC was all capitalized, so it paralleled it.
Got it. Okay. I meant like
Uh,
not just the first, it was like the entire thing is all caps.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
that's because it was replacing capital O, capital U, capital N, capital C.
I got you.
Word just inserted it as all caps.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the bylaws and submit them for board consideration as written with corrections.
So moved.
Alba,
Second?
all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay, we are just clicking right along, guys. This is awesome. Michael, what page are you on?
I'm up and down. I've actually made it to the end, so.
Okay, cool.
I agree with, I don't understand a few things on Melanie's end.
Let's
she
talk
wants-
about those.
And
That-
she wants to add a little bit more explanation. I'm not sure if we
Okay,
necessarily
let me-
need to do that.
Let me get the clean copy. Josh, you had incorporated all the comments, correct?
That's correct.
Clean.
And it might be, Mike, are you referring to the statement of purpose, the mission and the creation at the top? Or
I'm on, let's see, what page am I on? I'm looking at page 8 specifically.
okay.
That's due.
Kitty,
I mean,
can
has
you
it changed?
hold
Am I
on,
looking at
Kitty?
what we-
Kitty, will you pull up the chapter 1 for us so we can look at it together?
Give me 1 second.
That's what we need. Sorry, Micah, I want to, I don't want to be trying to find it on my screen while we're talking about it.
Okay.
I'm looking, 1 second. Order. You guys see that okay?
Yes.
And what page did you want me to get to?
Page 8, okay, is that what you said?
Yeah. So I don't have Melanie's on this document that you're pulling up there. Melanie's is not there.
They're incorporated.
I'm looking at the markup, they're incorporated, but not the chapter, the other document.
Okay, is it in the executive committee?
Are you talking about my question that Melanie has? That's going to be one of my questions. Yes, the executive committee, because I think you made a comment on that, and I think we need to probably retract what, you know, the purpose is, and then kind of redraft that. But I think it does need to be in there on what the function or potential function of the executive committee is, instead of removing it entirely.
Okay,
I think you made a comment to remove it or disband it.
I think
Correct,
that's
or-
one version prior.
Oh, is it? Well, let me get on the version you guys are on here, okay?
okay.
I don't know why we're looking at a version that we don't need to be looking at, but okay.
So let's start at the top maybe, because that it might be complicated to jump right into the middle. Unless there was nothing that you had seen up until that point, Micah, that you had questions about.
No. I think I just would like to look at the correct one. And I'm looking at your markup doc that was sent with the deliverable. So
Okay,
it's the one that gives me the most changes so that I can see what's been changed. So if there's a more current document that's made these changes, that
Yeah,
Josh, can you revert to a red line here?
I think so. Let's see. So the one I'm making sure we've been through so many variations of this.
That is true.
500.
I mean, this is how I do it in OARs, and it would be similar to being named a markup or a red line, and that would be consistent with all the changes all together with any and everyone that made comments. So I thought this one was.
Let's see. So that would be under policy and procedures through committee, and so I have your markup. And then red line. Yeah, this might be it. One, 8. Let's see, executive. So on that one, I don't have I just have the comments from Melanie and Jessica. It doesn't look like it saved my edits, but we could put them side by side. The question was whether or not there were additional functions, and I added those functions into the proposed draft. So I said, to address legal matters, administrative and tax concerns, public records requests, complex disputes, and organizational logistics not otherwise covered in other standing committees. And I felt that addressed the concern that there may not be a purpose for the executive committee, and I strongly believe there is.
Oh, I didn't, let me make sure I'm very clear on the comments that I made.
Okay.
In no way, shape, or form meant to be disparaging. It was taking the words on the page and saying, if this is really all that there is to it, this doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and I agree, it needed more. I think the rest of it is the same. There has been a question of whether or not we need a secretary, and currently our vice chair is also the treasurer. And then our PUC representative is still on deck awaiting appointment. So I think for now, it makes sense to leave it the way it is, because then it covers our bases.
Okay.
And then I changed Kitty's title in there as well.
Excellent.
Added that.
Okay.
Does that answer your questions?
Well, yeah, I'm looking at the two different documents, and yeah, let's see. So executive, I'm looking over at the one that says red line. It says, did you say you changed Kitty's.
So the one that Kitty had up was the clean. That's the most recent.
Mhm.
Okay.
You were mentioning the comments on the side, so I thought that was the version prior, because I did make changes in as a result of those comments and questions.
Yeah, this is funny. Okay, maybe it's just the way that is. That's fine. But all right.
What are you laughing?
Okay.
What's going
I've
on?
got 3 different versions here. So I've got the one, and I know the one is, it's not redline, the one that's showing on Kitty's screen right now. That shows page 8, midway up the page. I'm looking at your markup where it's page 9, and then I look over the red line where Josh, and it's almost page 10 where it has the executive committee. So maybe it's just, yeah, I just want to make sure that I'm looking at the right one here. That's all.
Yes, I understand that. Well, is there anything before that that caught your attention as something we needed to discuss?
Not before that.
Okay, Alba, anything in the first, 7-8 pages?
No, I didn't have anything there.
Okay.
And then just to clarify, if you're opening up the file with the word all caps clean at the very end of the attachment, then that's the most recent, because no other attachments have had the word clean at the end of it. So that should be because we had discussed, it was getting so messy with the red line that we'd have a more productive discussion if it was a clean copy rather than the red line. And then I
Yes,
should have saved the very last red line.
that's okay. We will do better going forward on how we present this. So I'm mirroring 2 documents. I'm going to attempt to join Micah in his quest to review 2 documents side by side. Just a moment here.
So I guess the question for me is that, Josh, on this clean version that you have, did you incorporate or discuss any of Melanie's questions? I mean, she made these comments. I'm understanding she made the comments for us today because she couldn't be here.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, that
So,
was to have those reflected in the edits.
so we've dealt with executive committee. The next committee is contracts. Melanie called out elimination of call center contractor, which maybe we should, because the bylaws, or excuse me, the PMP we just reviewed refers to contractor as vendor. So I think we should use the language vendor.
Yes.
Or if we want to be more specific, call center vendor. That change would be consistent. Melanie also asked a question of task of reviewing the operational statistics and the meaning of that. Josh, what changes were made reflecting that comment?
I'm trying to pull that up real quick.
Oh, we'll periodically review calls and statistics, providing call center vendor.
Oh, yeah, she was asking about, so I tried to just clarify that language. We are supposed to be auditing calls through the center, and then also reviewing the statistics that Scott provides at every meeting. The only thing we haven't been doing is the call reviews. But I changed that language to reflect that.
Okay, and then my comment was, if the only purpose of the contracts committee is for the purposes of engaging the contract of the call center vendor, do we need a contracts committee for that purpose, or should work revert to the board with the executive committee ultimately signing?
That's a fair question.
I'm reading. Hold on. Okay, so it does address both. I think we do need to have the call center in there because it is identifying what expectations we have for them. But I'm kind of this annual report here. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen an annual report put together. So,
Well, it's done by staff now. I mean, that's what Josh will be responsible for, which is where I come back to, like, why does this committee need to exist?
and I think that might be why Melanie's saying, what does this mean, maybe? Because if we're preparing that, then that's just operational, you know, vitality. I don't remember OCC putting anything together annually and presenting it. So
If you're speaking specifically of OCC, but there's other contracts that we take out periodically, isn't there?
Hmm.
It's not just OCC contract that we have. We have other contracts that we've done over the past years.
Yeah,
Right.
go ahead, Josh.
the OCC contract is the only one subject to the public contracting requirements of the RFP. The other ones, I've gotten the direction from Department of Justice that we don't need to follow that process, that we can follow our own process. But the call center is the one that is held to the highest standard.
So this is a committee for one vendor.
Unless we use that committee for those other contracts, we'll have to determine our own path to make sure that we're following the right process for those as well.
But for the purposes of vetting the RFP, that's something that could be done by the board as a whole, not, I mean.
Yeah, since it's only every 4 years.
Right. I mean, what's the point of having a committee that doesn't do any work, right? Sitting on a committee doesn't do anything. This could be an ad hoc committee, you know, when we go out to RFP to vet the RFPs and make a recommendation to the board. But honestly, the board's all accountable for the administration of that contract anyway, right? For oversight to the administration of that contract. So
That's correct.
I mean, I almost would say, you know, this made sense when we didn't have staff. We have staff now. So does it make sense to continue having a contracts committee?
I think that's definitely a question for the board.
Okay.
I mean, I know that, you know, let's just put note of that. I agree. I agree, but I do think that having that, if necessary, in a committee, and not so much for OCC. I mean, even though we don't have to go through the whole, you know, competitive, the RFP through, forgive me from using the wrong term, but on our smaller contracts, as you just mentioned, Josh, it would be nice to have some expertise, stakeholder-wise, in a committee. I mean, that's a lot of work, and you know, if Josh, you're willing to take it on, man, I'm not opposed to that. But I mean, how young our board is right now, I don't think we'd have a problem molding, you know, whatever narrative we want here. So,
Alba?
I'm just kind of on the lines of, if we're going to be kind of disbanding this committee, we need to take the work that's being done and move it to a different location in the policy to where it does belong. If it was under Josh's work and Kitty's work, wherever that needs to go, just so it doesn't get lost completely.
right, I agree with that, because I think some of the reason we have, you know, it would be nice to view these committees as some checks and balances. You know, I know Josh he's got a lot, and you know, that to-do list gets bigger and bigger and bigger depending on who he's talking to. So it might be good to make to look at it that way.
And this could be a committee that meets on an infrequent basis, quarterly or semi-annually versus monthly, just or as needed.
Yeah, I think, and that's where I think the, like, you know, ad hoc committees are one thing. A standing committee that's in our PMP, you know, if they don't have regular work to do, I don't know how much sense I mean, that's a committee I'd love to be on. You know, we're going to meet every 2 weeks for the next, you know, couple of months to get through our work. I'd love to have a committee that didn't have any work to do, right? That really need a committee if they don't need to meet regularly. I think, you know, if it's not spelled out in the PMP, Alba, to your point, that's the board's responsibility for oversight. And the way that I've seen this handled in other organizations, if it's a small contract that's within the, and this is where that managerial or employee manual comes in really, really key as the third leg to the stool that we're building right now. Because in that would be a directive of, you prepare the RFP, you send out the RFP, you collect the responses, you put it in this form, and you send it to the board for consideration, right? I mean, that's where we spell out those kinds of processes. And then the board has its scoring criteria for how they evaluate responses to an RFP. And that's all usually published as a part of the RFP. So there are mechanisms to make sure that this work gets done. I mean, I got to be honest, even this language, I don't think is sufficient to really cover that level of detail that's necessary to say how this process should go in the future. Unfortunately, we have time right now, right? That the One Call Concepts contract is not something that we're actively thinking about negotiating right now, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So that's where I would say, absent regular work, this committee, I would make a recommendation that we, that the board consider eliminating the committee because there's really no work for them to do. But it doesn't sound like I have committee consensus behind that.
Sorry, Jessica, say that again.
It's okay.
Here, so.
Absent regular work for the contracts committee to do, we can note as the PMP committee that one of the things we need to do is develop an RFP and an RFP process that both has elements in the PMP manual for going forward and in the employee or managerial manual for going forward on that on the One Call Concepts or the call center vendor contract, because that does have to go through a formalized process. And Josh, we'll need to get some recommendations from DOJ on actually how that process needs to look. I'm sure you have all of those materials already, but we'll need to write a policy both for employees as well as a part of the PMP. I just don't think it needs to be a standing committee, but what I would guess based upon the conversation we're having here, is that something we should present to the board and let the board weigh in on?
Yeah, I think so. Just from, again, where I'm sitting, we start retracting some of these things, and taking them out. As time goes on, things can, I would say, for lack of a better term, slip between the cracks. So it's, and then also, a lot of individuals join the board from their own perspective, stakeholder groups, and they join these committees to get some experience and learn. And I'm not saying that's a purpose for, that's a reason to keep the committee, but if I've got you and I've got Melanie helping Josh along with Nate, I mean, I would feel more comfortable about that than, and not to take anything away from you, Josh, but I'd like multiple eyes on it, and not to say that Josh wouldn't present it that way and say, hey, look, please look at it. I just don't think, I mean, look, we had to reschedule this meeting and you guys actually met in person. I think that's, a little ridiculous, but that's the way that it goes when it's a volunteer board. So I'm for it. I fear that, we might lose a little bit of, there. So.
Yeah. Well, and Mike, I hear you. It's these are not permanent changes. These are, let's get the manual in shape, and it's a living document, right? I mean, everything that we do here today is not the way it's going to permanently be. It's going to change and adapt in accordance to the needs of the center, the board, and staff, right? As we identify.
I'm aware of that. But if we say let's remove contracts, or let's get in that dialogue with the board, and we make a motion, and contracts are gone, we're not going to be bringing contracts back. Not in my term, not in anybody else's probably term. So I'm just saying, and that's what I think of if I'm gone, and when I'm gone, which will be pretty soon, then who's to say when you're gone, or if something happens to one of us, it's up to Josh. And I have all the faith in you, Josh. But you're only as good as Jessica here, and you're only as good as myself or anyone else that's helping the process. And I just don't want to get away from that. So that's all.
Yeah, and especially with the RFP, the call center contract, that would absolutely be a board process. That wouldn't fall to me. Some of these smaller ones for sponsorships or room reservations and all those that Kitty's been handling, are pretty straightforward. And we haven't, at my last job, we used to require a state contract along with every one of the private contracts. And it really did make it excessively burdensome and was an extra hoop to jump through that didn't really provide us with anything. So the biggest thing I see in the future is if we go Washington's route, which their contracts committee does, like I say, they do audit the calls. And so they'll send out calls for committee members to review and report back on a quarterly basis. So that might be a role that we have that would require committee member involvement on an ongoing basis.
I speak from experience from my end. I think we use Bob now for our locator training, and Bob,
Yep.
we were looking at it from a cost standpoint at that point, and then some other factors. And I remember finding Bob, and I remember bringing him to that committee, and then we ended eventually going with him. I didn't think we were, but I mean, his prices were substantially lower than everyone else's. So, you know, there was some involvement there, and it took the committee. Otherwise, we were just going to sign another contract with, you know, considerable markup on whatever, you know, over the years they've got us for. So, I'm
Yeah,
with you
Micah,
guys.
but don't you think that the other board members would maybe have resources that they would lend to that conversation too, if we were having that discussion in the board meeting?
If they're not working in a committee, my experience would be that there's minimal. You've got under a handful of individuals. But you know what? We've got a whole new group of individuals. So I mean, I agree with Josh. I think he's right with that. I think if we're going to have a contracts committee that is just focused on, you know, the call center, but it's not, like you're saying, it's not working at that point. It's not a working committee until, you know, the end of the year or whenever we come up on renewal. So I don't want to waste any more time on it.
Okay.
I agree with you. Let's bring to the board, see what they think.
Okay.
So we can do it.
Publicity. I see several changes that were made, but I don't see any questions or comments here on the publicity committee.
No.
Okay. Alba?
I have nothing.
Okay. Membership. This is another committee where I said this feels like it's every board member's responsibility to help with bringing on members and handling the executive appointments, and marshaling that process really does feel more like a staff task than something that the committee would be than a committee member or a board member would be directly involved in.
Absolutely.
So I don't know that the need is to have a membership committee any longer.
Right. I've always felt that way, and Josh has done an excellent job. I think Phil's been the best as far as and why is it the PUC representative, you know, that's been the person to do it? Yeah, it just seems a little sideways there, but I agree with that.
Okay, so Alba, would you be comfortable with making a recommendation that we disband the membership committee?
Yes.
Okay. Josh, will you make those changes?
I will, and I'm currently chair of that, so that makes the most sense. And then Phil was really helpful on giving me all of his resources. And the problem right now is not getting members lined up, it's getting them approved. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, training and education. There were just some minor changes there. Committee thoughts, questions, comments?
So in the past, we've separated the committees, right, Kitty? I mean, this was before my time, the training and education versus the PMP publicity.
Correct.
So, and I mean, it makes sense. But there's a lot of stuff you do, Kitty. I mean, you pretty much do all of it. So what are your thoughts? I'd like to know your thoughts.
Sorry, I'm writing as well. Oh gosh. I'm reading it. I kind of think it's the same as keeping contracts. for now, just unless you want it, you know, going directly to staff.
You know, if we're moving this direction, which I'm not opposed to, we've gone down this road before, and then moving this into a quarterly meeting. Because if this is going to be a 2-hour board meeting, you know, and a lot of Josh reporting and Kitty reporting, or Josh reporting and Kitty doing a lot of the work. I'm not opposed to it. I think there are certain individuals that this was modeled after OCC or you know, the OUCC. That's really what the structure of this board and its committees. It really mimics a lot of that, of the old. But I know Mitch has been training in education for quite some time. I'd really like his opinion on that.
Well, there's nothing that bars him from supporting staff on these projects, right?
Right.
It's just, do we need a formal committee that has a reporting responsibility and is largely reporting on what staff is going to be doing? I mean, that's where I get the question comes up to me is this something that there's enough work that, I mean, there's always enough work that we can engage board members and have them have responsibility. But this feels like it's largely been replaced by 2 staff members that we didn't have previously.
Yeah, no, I think Kitty's always done this. Like I said before, I think Kitty's pretty much.
Well, Mitch talks about it, right?
Well, Mitch talks about it, but he gets an email, so.
Right. So let's just
I
cut out
write
the
it and
middleman.
I email him.
That's what I mean. Let's just cut out the middleman. And you know, is this something? I don't know. This is
I would agree with it. Yeah.
for this committee to have about what kind of reporting do we want in these buckets, right? Do we need a readout at every meeting? Okay, is that something that can be put together in a narrative, right? That goes out with the meeting packet of here's the topics and here's the quick bullet points. And then if we have questions, we talk about it in the meeting.
Yeah, no, I absolutely wholeheartedly believe that. And the other part of it is I've always been the advocate of moving towards an advisory board versus this working board that none of us have time to do. So I'm all for that. And I think what I'm looking at is, okay, if it's not something that we want to report on, is it gives other committees more time to have discussion or,
Yeah.
you know, the real involvement from the board that we need. Like the OIRs really do need on an every meeting basis, a little bit more time to discuss things.
And you need more committee members that have more time to focus on that, right? We have so many committees, we're spread to so many things. You know, if we have fewer committees and the board's doing what the board is responsible for doing, which is providing strategic direction to staff and helping, you know, alleviate barriers that staff is encountering, taking that focus, now all of a sudden we have a much more engaged board doing the work that Josh needs to keep him busy, right? He's there to run everything for us, and Kitty's there to make sure he's running everything for us. You know, I think OARs, that committee needs to get bigger, and that's a big job, right? Because I mean, you know, Mike, I'm preaching to the choir here, but you know, wouldn't it be great if you had 4 or 5 advocates on a topic, so it wasn't just you talking about an issue, but that, you know, maybe we have different constituencies coming together. I mean, certainly when it comes to making changes at the legislative level, the more people in the room on one side, the better.
Right. No, I agree.
Cultivate that.
I would be ecstatic for a subcommittee. I mean, I'm just in thought, just a vetting subcommittee, because honestly, I'll tell you the truth. I'm not sure if I mentioned it to your knowledge before, but I literally I avoid the Metro Utility Coordinating Council in Portland. I don't go to that council at all. And it's because I'm just a dart board. And when I come out of there, it's this person's calling me, that person's calling me, here's my number. And, you know, so, but it's my responsibility to go to those. And I hate the fact that I, you know, avoid them purposely. But yeah, no, I agree. I think we need to do a little bit more there if we could.
Okay, so I want to back up and make sure I captured this note correctly. Training and education, we've collectively decided that that's actually staff's work. We don't need to have a committee for that any longer. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then OERs, the revisions, I don't have any problems with the revisions that were made. Alba? thoughts on the revisions that are suggested here?
I'm in agreement with it all.
Excellent.
On training and education, the only caveat right now, I'm overhauling the excavator training and 811 training, and it is going to require involvement of Mitch, Connor, and all them. So it might just shift to an ad hoc committee until that's all put to bed,
Yep,
because I
absolutely.
will need their involvement throughout.
Yeah.
It's a heavy lift.
Yep, that's Josh, that's how I see these tools working, right? You've got planning committees to help you with the big problems that are always present to us. And then we can put together ad hoc meetings as needed, right? And Micah can appoint folks to lead that, and anybody can jump on board. So,
Jessica? My
yes, ma'am.
deepest apologies. I have had a pinched nerve migraine for 3 days. I am running across town to get to an appointment. And I haven't slept in 3 days. So I'm hoping they have some good drugs and an adjustment. Again, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to get better for tomorrow and Wednesday.
Go.
I've
yourself.
recorded this meeting. I've taken minutes, and I've just switched hosts to Josh. So
Great.
again, sorry
Excellent.
guys, but I've got to run.
Thank you, Katie.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, Kitty.
Thanks, Kate.
Okay, so we've made it through OARs. I didn't have any changes to P&P. Alba, Micah, anything about P&P?
No, I didn't have anything.
So, hold on. Committee's purpose has been replaced. That's budget and audit. Okay. Is that okay? So that's above. So your comment for the work has been replaced by the ED and the CPA. That's for budget and audit, right? Because
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. No, I don't.
Okay. You guys, this is great. Thank you so much for your focus on this. I know this is a bit of a push and it's a lot of reorganization that we're talking about here. So I really, really appreciate you and your thoughtfulness on this. Okay, budget and audit. Yes, I have comments there. Melanie had some suggested language. When I looked at this and I thought about the statement of purpose, I have the same response to this that I have about training, right? This is something that we've asked staff to do. It's part of Josh's job description. I don't know that we need a committee that's responsible for looking at this information if we're going to use a third-party CPA firm and we have staff.
I agree with that.
I do so.
I've agreed with that for a long time. It's just nice to have someone else come in and have the same thoughts and passion about things. It's hard, like you said, it's hard to be, and you can't, not even in the VP role that I had when I was doing that before this, it's tough to be an advocate for something because you feel like you're, yeah. I'll just stop there.
Micah, we'll have a beer sometime where you can finish your sentences. Okay, the OUCC. Isn't this just what I'm sorry. As I thought about this, I kept asking myself if I understood what this committee was for. Isn't this really what Kitty reports on?
So, okay. This right here was an add-on. So if we look at, I mean, what you already know, I mean, this, what I mean is the position on the board. So it was an add-on. It wasn't, or is that? Let me go
No,
back.
this is a committee.
Well, right. So you're not opposed to the position. You're just saying the committee, right?
Yeah, the committee just seems like it should be a staff report.
Mm-hmm. And that's, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to have that beer at some point here sooner than later because I'll just
Where are you physically? Where are you physically located?
Salem. I'm in Salem. But listen, so this thing with and Alba, I know that in my opinion, back years past, there were some positions on the board that were added by certain individuals that probably shouldn't have been. And I believe this is an important one, but a committee along with it, and the way that it's been managed or hasn't been.
You're talking about that beer again. I hear you.
I think everybody knows my sentiments about that position, and it's need to be on the board, because what it does, there's a lot of conflict of interest, and that's what it provides, and it's hard. So,
well, it's a board position already designed by statute. They don't need a committee to.
So this one is the OUCC.
But this committee section, there's already in the very beginning that is a position on the board. That's a part of the statute.
It wasn't
not talking
specified in statute. It was
Right.
one of the additions. When the first 17 seats are in statute, and the ones after were added.
Okay, so that's in the upper section. That's something for us to put a pin in and hold at when we get through the policy and procedures manual and the employee manual and the bylaws, and they're all three stood up. Micah, I promise you, our next meeting of the PMP, and Josh, hold me to this, we will discuss the appointments to the board that are not statutorily driven. And we'll make recommendations accordingly to the board. Fair?
Excellent.
Okay, I will commit to you. So that will be early June. OUCC board position. Okay, I made a note in my big red pen to remind me. And it's circled, so I will make sure we have a meeting on that. Can we for now eliminate this committee from the board?
Yes. I'm in favor of it.
Alba?
Just have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
During our board meetings, is there any place on the agenda other than this committee portion that OUCC can give updates to what they're doing?
We can add that.
Yeah.
Okay, then yeah, I don't see that it needs to be a committee. Just so that they have a place that they can give updates to the OUNC.
And that could be something that could be provided again in a narrative that is included in the board packet.
Yeah.
Okay, dirt. I love this committee. I love calling a committee dirt. So when I read through damage reporting, I see this as largely being the driving force behind changes to either rules or publicity, right? I would think that, not to put more work onto the OAR and rules committee, but that's probably the right place for this information to come from. Because if there's something that needs to move into publicity because of a trend or something that we're noticing, that's work that could be referred by the OAR committee out, right? As, hey, we're seeing this, we probably ought to get a messaging campaign put together around this item.
Wow.
What do you think?
Well, I think that the smile on my face that I'm not showing has been one that's been there for a while. And now that we're going to have Kevin Hennessy on the board, you're going to have a fun time doing that.
I have no idea what that cryptic statement meant, but are you in agreement that this work should shift to OARs?
Yes, I've been in favor of it for quite some time.
Okay. Alba?
Yeah, I definitely believe the two are connected as well.
Okay. Yes. Moving right along. This is great.
You gave us a great starting place. Thank you.
Oh, you know what? I just want to get it done. Okay. I see from section 1.5 on that really, I think that doesn't belong in the first chapter. I mean, I know we're kind of talking about operations, but the title of the chapter, and did you make that change already? Oh, you did make that change already. Okay.
I did leave it manual because I felt like that was it's something we commit to that's a much larger, it's for the community, it's for the industry. But those other ones definitely belonged more in the employee manual.
Okay, I agree with you. Yes, that's sort of what our policies are. I mean, it could become a part of the bylaws, right? That's an option. They could shift over there. Because like the center's copyright policy, well, no, because that's going to control staff.
Yeah,
And-
that's more of a,
Website,
Right.
you know, you're right. That does belong in the employee manual.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. Okay, then we're done. So we have a few committees, and I want to recap what they are that we're making. So we've made revisions to the exam so that we know what their responsibility is. The contracts committee, we're gonna have a discussion with the board about potentially, we can go one of two ways. We can leave the committee in place, but recognizing that it's more or less an ad hoc committee at this point because it's only doing work every 4 years because its work is largely vetting the RFP for the call center vendor. So we could either eliminate the committee and stand it on an ad hoc basis and develop some rules, both in the policies and procedures manual and in the employee manual, or we can leave the committee intact and leave this alone.
Correct.
Publicity, we made some small changes. Membership, we are removing that committee. Training and education, that's going to be converting to an ad hoc committee until that work is complete, but will no longer be a standing committee. OARs, which is actually rules, regulations, and tariffs, will include damage reporting and analysis and dirt. Policies and procedures have revisions. We're removing budget and audit. We're removing OUCC as a committee. And that's it. So are we comfortable with making these recommendations to the board as we discussed today?
Yes.
Micah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, I will have a very thorough report to give at our meeting on Wednesday. I thank you both for your time and attention on this. We will get chapter 2 out. I'm guessing first part of next week, so you have some time to review it ahead of time. I will do my best to get a redline version out within 48 hours of my receipt so that you have a starting place to start thinking through. I'll put my comments into that document.
Thank you, Jessica.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you both. I'll see you
Thanks for the work,
Wednesday.
Jessica.
No problem. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.